All right, everyone, I'm gonna get started, but before I would like to do a little introduction. So, welcome. I actually wrote something which is unusual. I usually do on top of my head, but today I think it's something very special. So, I decided to actually write it down. So, hey everyone, welcome to the first Motivational Live. I'm Richard Reigen. I'm a former professional triathlete, and now I'm writing a book about this journey of mine. Anyways, I was actually about to quit coaching and because I wasn't racing anymore. It wasn't like feeling I wasn't really in touch, and for a while I actually hated the fact that I was an athlete before. So it's a long story, so long that actually it's becoming a book. Uh, but I was about to quit coaching when I received a message of someone wanted to do their first Ironman pretty much with no background in the sport. A story that it's very similar to mine. You know, a lot of people laugh at me when I said I was going to do an Ironman back in the day out of nowhere. Especially when I said I was going to become a professional triathlete. Uh, like it was a lot of people laughed, and so his story was very similar to mine, coming from pretty much no background in the sport and wanting to do an Ironman. So I took as a sign. But before that, I had to acknowledge my very, very first sponsor, which was my brother. I not only learned all these layer songs with my brother, but I also learned many things. One of the most important things that I learned was the famous "says who" question that he used to do every time that I told him I couldn't do it, and he would look to me like "says who," like who is saying that you cannot do it. And I took that for a long time, and also based on the fights that we had at home, I learned how to never give up. So his my brother was my very first sponsor, a big motivator of mine, and the reason that I'm here. And I must acknowledge that now he has an institution in Brazil that actually help kids, like young athletes. The name of the his institution is Instituto Mosaico, and I must say I think he's really following his purpose because what he did actually helped me, and it connects with the athlete that we're gonna talk about today, Ari Varon, because he took me as a coach. He made me go above and beyond of what I actually expected, because first he came with the idea of doing his first Ironman, and then after that he wanted to do two other ones in the same year, and two of them solo. So like I said, I think it's all connected, and I want to invite him to come here and talk to us. Let me see how I can do this. All right. Hey, man.
How you doing?
Good, and you?
I'm doing very well.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
was just talking about you that you did. You came to me to do one Ironman, and then you ended up deciding to do two other ones, which was very, very far from my comfort level as a coach, especially. But like you pushed me to go above and beyond of uh, on the coaching side that I never really experiment. So I want to hear a little bit about your journey and all the good stuff.
sure. First, I'll say that I'm pretty sure that none of it would have been really feasible and possible without you and your coaching. You really brought in the calmness from the first conversation and a true understanding. I try to balance family and triathlon from day one. And your email, my email to you and your email back to me, just when we started talking, was a very clear understanding that family and children come first and that triathlon comes after. And if there was a way to build that together, you made that clear, and you really managed to build that entire process together. And I remember some of the first things you said, and they lead me not only in triathlons but in my day-to-day life. You are an inspiration to everything I do. So it's been amazing.
Oh, so we can say that was a good exchange of energy.
A great exchange. You are super intuitive, even from the first call and everything. You're amazing, and you seem to know exactly what the week should look like as far as working out and how to balance the kids and life. And it's been amazing. Yes, I think that a great balance of energy and a great sense of purpose.
Excellent. Thank
So,
you for your kind words. You know, it's funny because like when you do that as like I do, even without thinking about it, you know, like and the whole role as a coach, he affects people a lot more than you can imagine. And I remember a few conversations that I have with my wife. Is like I'm dealing with people's dreams, so it's like I can't just act out of, you know, your purpose, and your goal becomes my goal as well, because like I said, it's like I'm dealing with people's dreams. But uh, I just found it interesting because you are in Israel, right? I'm in US. I, you know, I was actually quitting coaching for a little bit, and from out of nowhere you found me. So I just want to like acknowledge, how did you find
how
me
did I
in
find you?
this
Well,
world?
I had no idea you were going to quit coaching. I'm glad I reached out to you because you've changed my life. I stopped eating all carbs, grains, and sugars. And in January 2019, I decided I'm going to get off the couch, and I was going to set a goal of running 5 kilometers in under 30 minutes. And that seemed like a pretty mountainous goal for me. I'd been in shape before. I'd gotten up to 102 kilos, which is like 225 pounds. And I figured out how to lose weight by cutting back carbs and no sugars. And I started to get off and started running. And then I realized I didn't want to run so much because I was born with a club foot and couldn't run too much because I'd always kept injuring myself every time I was running. And so I finally figured out how to get to a sprint triathlon. And a friend of mine who had done his first Ironman a couple years before had said to me, you know, an Ironman is a different beast. And I was like, an Ironman's impossible. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stick with the sprint. Another friend pushed me to go to an Olympic. And I just said, I'm not going to stop myself. So I made it to a half Ironman on the 20th of June, which is the day after my middle son's birthday. And then I knew I wanted to go one step further. There was actually a moment in the middle of the run of the half Ironman where I was like, there's no way I can do, I was feeling good all the way through. There was no way I could do a full Ironman. I was sure of it. And as soon as I thought that thought in my mind, my legs started to shudder. I can remember, and I almost couldn't continue running. And I said, wait a second, of course I can do it. And I finished that pretty well, and I knew I had to find a coach. So I went onto the Ironman website, and I was like, I need a coach who I don't have to explain that I don't eat carbs to. And I did a search, and there was actually a lot of them, 10 or 15. But somehow your like leftover profile sort of stuck out. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll contact 3. But no, I contacted you. I was like, he's got to write back because he's got to be the right guy. And you wrote back and you're like, how did he find me? I haven't updated that website for like years. But that's how I found you. I looked for somebody who had something about being a father in their profile. Obviously, having done 18 Ironmans herself was the key right there and what I was looking for at that time. And I wrote you and I said, listen, my kids, as I said before, just recently, my kids are my #1 priority, but I'm going to do this thing. I just started running 6 months before, and my first full length is going to be in 6 months. Can you do it? Everybody else said I'm crazy for trying, and you're just like, all right, let's do it. So it was magic from day one.
Yeah, that's pretty, like, it shows like it pretty much is all connected. And it's funny because when you came to me, I was like, for some reason his story sounds like it's almost like the ideal athlete for me. Because the reason I say that is because like a lot of people sometimes come with so many different things and knowledge that they have to exercise pretty much to death in order to accomplish such a thing as Ironman. It's almost like you have to give up your life. And it's very troubling for me to go and break those habits and rebuild new habits. So athletes like you that come like with pretty much no background. And your story is very similar because you had a half Ironman. Like for me, my first race was a half Ironman. I was
Nice.
like, I didn't have a coach either. I just went and did it. And when I decided to do an Ironman, I was like, okay, I need to have some sort of guidance because I have no idea what to expect because it's a whole different monster. Your
Different
friend was
beast.
absolutely right. It is a whole different monster. But it was cool because when I read your email, I was like, okay, he's starting from ground zero. We can start with, like, I don't need to break the habits. 6 months is doable. Let's go for it.
But
So
here's where, I talked to other friends of coaches. After having talked with you, everybody else I talked to was like, no way, it's a 3-year process. It's a 2-year, there's no, and everybody started with no. Whereas with you, every time we've done this in the first solo and the second solo as well, the third one, you're like, you sure? All right, let's do it. So you come with the motivation and you build up. And one of the things I built a website for the second solo that we're going to talk about. But I always said we have to stop stopping ourselves. And what you managed to do is not stop other people. And you managed to find a way that they can thrive themselves and build upon themselves. It's fantastic.
well, there's one thing that I carry with me in life, like, and I owe it to my brother with the says who, is exactly that. It's like, if you come to me, if you believe you can do it, like, who am I to say, like, hey, to judge you? So, like, no, you cannot do it. Let's forget about it. It's like, no, let's build a plan.
Yep.
And that's where you really challenge me because, at first we build a plan for 6 months, an Ironman, boom, done. And then you come to me, it's like, well, I want to do another one, the solo. I was like, well, 2 Ironmans in 1 year, it's a lot for anybody. And I was like, okay, well, let's be creative. And we were creative, no injuries again. And
Yeah.
then and then you came like, oh, let's do the third one. I was like, this guy's nuts. But then at the same time, that touched my soul because I was like, I always been nuts like this. When I said like I gotta quit smoking and start doing Ironman, everybody was like, "Are you nuts?" So I'm like,
Well,
yes, kind of, but
well,
you know,
let's slow down a little bit. You only said I was nuts for doing the second one solo after I finished. So it was June 21st, which is your birthday, and it was your 40th birthday. And I finished in my time in the evening, and it was your sort of morning. And I called you up to wish you happy birthday, and I'd finished. And that's when you said you're nuts, that I was nuts for trying to do one solo, and you never could have done it yourself. Had you told me that when I told you I was thinking of doing it solo, I probably never would have done it. So there again was your intuition and not
yeah,
stopping you.
it's
And,
like
it works together beautifully.
yeah, it's like I'm not gonna. I thought it through. Actually, telling you was like, man, it's a crazy plan, but I mean, I think it's doable, and you think it's doable, which is like the most important part of it. But I was like, first, like, who am I to say it? And second, is like, my job is to guide you to reach your dreams,
100%.
whatever the hell that might be. And I was like, but after you finish the race, I was like, man, you're nuts. I had to be honest. Like, I had no, like, I had to say, and I gotta add, like, I tried to do 3 Ironmans in 1 year, and I couldn't finish.
Wow.
So that's another kudos to you because it is really
Well,
hard to do two in 1 year. Three, it's even harder. And solo, I done metric Ironman solo as training, but never like a full Ironman solo. And that was actually proposed to me when I was having my doubts. My dad actually told me, like, why don't you do one solo just to see how it is, and then you go try to compete. And then I was like, no way, I don't like. I like what I'm doing. I have a purpose for what I'm doing, but I don't think I'm that crazy to go and do a
for
solo.
sure. Well, COVID hit 2020, and things changed, and everything and threw everything off. So it was either totally stop doing anything or do it on my own. I don't know if I would have. I remember the time debating, can I do it solo? I'd signed up for the Ironman competition in Austria because that's sort of flat and useful. And then COVID hits and everything shuts down. And it was either literally stop and let everything stop me. And I really felt like we were just in the momentum of this plan you built to do one in July, which was when I was planning to do it. And like, I remember the time biking, I was on the bike and I'm like, well, I can, they're shutting down competitions and I'll stop. And then I felt just no desire to train. I knew that everything would fall apart. I knew I'd never probably get on the bike again. And I was like, why don't I just do it on my own? Because anyways, as you know, I do all my training by myself because I like training on my own. I do it. I take care of my kids a lot. My wife's a gynecologist and works a lot, and she's a wonderful mother. But when I need to be home in the morning to take the kids, and I don't have time to train in groups anyway, so I train during the day. COVID came, shuts everything down, and so my choice was to do it on my own or not do it. And so doing it solo seemed just sort of natural, and I just sort of ran through it. And kids were the number one priority, especially during all the lockdowns and everything. So I had the trainer, and I managed to balance my work, life, kids, and the training all beautifully. And through the long and grueling training sessions you put out for me, which was needed for do this thing solo. And it was an amazing balance. It was tremendous. It was an ability to really sort of find my inner thoughts. And actually, so I made this shirt. Can't really see it so well. And I figured once I got into it, I started to go solo. I do all the things, make a shirt. I had a 3D printer. I printed myself a medal. I have it in some of the pictures up there. But I said, Corona didn't stop me, right? So like, it really became a theme of I was going to overcome this place when everybody was stopping and waiting and not doing very much, and really just sort of not let anything stop me at all.
Do you know that this is very punk, like to a point like, hey, you know what? I'm going to do it. Because I went at the same time you were going to that process, I went to a process because I was starting to do the kids' punk rock songs. And when COVID hit it, like I didn't have a guy to play the drums for me and the bass. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I actually, you know what? I got to learn the bass and the drums and do it by myself. And this is what is actually happening with me now in a different terms. So that's very interesting. And talking about wives, I need to actually acknowledge, I know my brother was my first sponsor, but my wife also, she's been my tremendous number one cheerleader, and she had helped me a lot. And I must say, talking about brutal trains, I remember one day I had like a brutal training section, and we went to run with my dog. And so we started to run, and my wife was like, hey, you got to run, And I said, like, well, I already trained a lot. She's like, and I'm tired. She's like, and then my dog was tired too. She's like, no, he can stop. You continue because you need to train. So what I'm trying to say is like, she supported me a lot in this process. And with your wife being such a busy doctor, a gynecologist, and I know she supported you a lot through this process.
100%.
Can you tell us a little bit of what she did? Because I thought it was amazing. And during the race, I was talking to her through WhatsApp, knowing how you were doing it.
Know that.
So
I had signed up for the July Ironman in Austria. It got closed because of COVID. I decided to go solo, and in my mind, I meant solo, like all the way. It took me about a month and a half before I had the guts to even tell my wife what I was going to do, and I meant solo as in all the way. I planned everything by myself. I realized that based on the first one I did in January before, that the second half of the run, you needed somebody there to help you with food and stuff, which I actually overcame that in the third one I did. But and so I knew I needed to tell one person. I had one good friend that I knew I could trust could be there. I knew I wanted my wife and my boys there for the ending, but and it took me a little while to build up the courage to tell her. But I brought all my training, all the food, all the nutrition, all the water, all the everything by myself during the bike and during everything. But a few weeks before, it was actually about a month and a half before, I told my wife what I was going to do. And her first response was that I was crazy. And like everything in her first response, she's 100% right.
I must say, I must agree with you on that too.
Right, for sure. But we married well, and I love Carol. She's amazing. The little bit I've got to chat with her at the end of my races and got to see her and say hello. It's beautiful. So we both married well. And I think that she was trying to do something very sweet, knowing I was trying to keep it private. And she had talked to a PR person at her work at the hospital about how to publish an article, a little something about just something as a namesake, as something to remember by that's been published. I don't know. But it got picked up by one of our major news sources in Israel, and they were doing daily, but then like larger segments on positive stories that COVID left. And their last segment was on May 31st, so the race was June 21st, and this is 3 weeks before. And a few weeks before that, they decided to do that was actually like a 10-minute segment on my run, on my race, to end to end their TV show of all the positive cases of COVID. In May, we were sort of coming out of the first wave, and they were shutting down the show. I actually felt very uncomfortable about publicizing it before the race, because I said there's like a million ways that this doesn't happen and only one way that it does happen, because I knew how complicated it would be, but they decided to do it anyways, and I agreed. What happened was May 31st, this show goes on the air, and my wife obviously takes it and publicizes it a little bit, and I figured I'd send it to some people as well. And my boys' school got a hold of it. Now, COVID, everything shut down, no races, no kids events, and I was going to do this all outside on the beach. I live in Tel Aviv. It's a beach city. It's all on the beach and in a park nearby. And my kids' school asked if they could do a kids run, just like any marathon has a kids run.
Yeah.
So we arranged 100 kids within our community and families decided to join during the end of the run. And so the whole point of this being, what she managed to do was take something that was very, very going to be totally solo and personal and turn it into something that was a little more public. At the beginning, I was a little bit, I can't say upset, but it was very different than what I thought. But talking about a little bit of motivation, what really changed my perspective on everything was people, my friends, started coming up to me and saying, wow, seeing what you're doing is motivating me to be a little bit better, to run a little bit further, to not compromise on myself, to have my kids go a little bit more. And this is before the race itself. And I have to admit that little bit of push of good of what it's doing to other people really gave me a lot of inspiration myself and motivation to not only finish, but really to try to be much better. And I'll skip forward a little bit. So at the end of the run, maybe I'll explain it a little bit more in detail if we want, but these 100 kids joined me, and anybody who's done an Ironman or thought about one, or as you told me from day one, that last half of the race, of the run, that last half of the run is pure mental. It's about your physical desire to finish, and has nothing to do with what you've trained or not trained. It's how much you want it. But being able to, what we did was have all these kids run back and forth with me, do these segments for them. One, I was surrounded by kids I could not run. You know, you're literally surrounded.
The energy of kids are awesome, man.
Couldn't, and some of them are running faster than me, but I have some stories from that. But on the other side, it provided this momentum and this tremendous reason about why I wanted to do it in the first place, and why I couldn't move the date because the weather was horrible, and why I had to finish once I had started. So it was a tremendous sort of recreation of just support within the solo Ironman.
It's interesting. And well, since we're talking about why, you know, like why, I want to ask you, why was your idea to do an Ironman? And an Ironman for me is something really that means like really going inside of yourself, because you're out there for hours, whether you're training or racing, you're over there hours with you and, let's say, your soul, pretty much, you know. Like, so I would like first to ask why you decided to do Ironman. Second, well, let's just start with the why you decided to do it.
So I'll tell you, the reason I decided, why did I decide to do it? It was in that moment of that first half, or the half I did, and it was you know, again, I started with trying to run 5K, and I thought that was a goal, and I was going to do a sprint, and that was my goal. And I was like, somebody said, why don't you try an Olympic? And I remember thinking, no way I could finish an Olympic. But then when I finished my sprint, I was like, wait a second, I'm not going to stop myself. So the same thing, why did I decide to do Ironman? For two reasons. One, I was like, I'm not going to stop myself. And the second one is, I had no idea what it would entail. No, like if you would come and tell me what it would mean, like luckily you didn't. I think most people would probably be like, you're crazy for doing it. But I think the reason is, as I started doing it, for me, I found my true inner quiet when I'm training. Certainly the longer sessions, you you get as I told people after, you become so tired, you can't lie to yourself. You just keep on going. You get into a mantra. Your mind clears out. You told me at the beginning that you get to meet your demons on the one hand, and I hope I'm not ruining your, for your next Ironman,
No,
because
no,
I don't want to ruin, your tips as you go along, because you
no,
think I'm
no.
at the right place. But I don't think I ever ran into my demons. I think that everything shut out. I ran into my true self, my ability to really focus, my business decisions, my family decisions, just all sort of focused. And every long ride, I'd have the ability to focus myself a little bit more and finish with just being cleansed in some sense. And I think the decision to do it was a natural progression of reaching what I used to think was impossible. Again, the first person told me that an Ironman, I literally said, it's impossible. Nobody can do it. I knew obviously people could, but I never could. And I built myself up, and it was about doing it because, um, I thought it was impossible, and now I was going to make it possible.
It's funny
And
because no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and one more thing, going back to what you did, like the way you brought in the training, and it wasn't just a training and do this much biking, and how to think about it. It was how to release all the anger, remove all the stress, remove all these obstacles, not to hate things. I remember telling you, I hate the wind because it's blowing against me. You're like, don't hate anything. It takes too much energy. And those are these moments that stay. And I've released all these things about hatred and anger. And you can make the way you do an Ironman more efficiently, the way you live your life more efficiently, and meld everything together in a way that you can reach these impossible dreams. And part of it is an Ironman, and part of it is just reaching excellence and other things that you do.
Interesting. It's funny because like my first Ironman, I thought I was gonna die. I was like, the minute that I crossed the finish line, I thought I was gonna die. And I must acknowledge that Ryan Becker just got in, and Ryan Becker was one of my athletes too. And he was like you, pretty much. He swam before, but no backgrounds. Like, let's do an Ironman. We went to Cozumel to do Ironman Cozumel. Maybe one day we can share the story here. But he also
Nice.
faced his demons on that race, big
Nice.
time. I remember that. So. Uh, it's just like it's funny because like I think the Ironman journey it brings a lot of that in people, and like the facing the challenge, the adversity, and I think a lot of people, like you said, the anger and hatred and stuff. A lot of people see that as a bad thing, and I usually see as a good thing if you channelize to the right thing. Most of my races were full of anger in a way, but I just put it into something good. And,
Exactly. Exactly. All that energy that's pent up, and you put it in, and yeah, for
it's
sure.
about shifting the perspective and getting that energy and putting in something else. Which brings me to a question. You know how COVID. Uh, I think I don't know about you, but I think at the first moment it changed a lot of the energy in the whole planet.
For sure.
Uh, so do you think that had like what effect had on you or with that and the fact that okay you had a Ironman Austria plan and it didn't work out and you were like okay let me just do it by myself uh, but how the whole COVID like energy and heating did it affect you
So I've never really thought about that way, and I think it's a right way to think about it. You know, COVID definitely changed the energy in the planet and everything. Everybody sort of slowed down, and many people have picked up the pace in many ways. But I think that for me, so I did a first Ironman January 31st. It was the Israman in Israel with a lot of hills and bikes, considered one of the 10 hardest races. At least that's how they market themselves. Having that under my belt, and knowing what I wanted to do was get the M. I really wanted to get the Ironman M, the red M. I felt like that was my goal, and I had a goal when that got, which is, by the way, why, and I told you this, why I did the third one in October, because I wanted the Ironman M. It was a blue M I
yeah
ended up getting, but not the red. But so when COVID hit, I think that everybody can respond to it differently. And I think my way was about to be, I'm going to stop, but I decided not to let it stop me. But I go back to that first Ironman that I finished and the way you trained and coached me and brought me and helped change not only the way I trained, but the way of life. I'd taken a year. So from January 19 to January 20, went from literally off the couch to finishing an Ironman. and I had built up something that had been missing in my life, this training ability, this way of getting my body again addicted to being fit and feeling good. And I didn't want to stop it. But on the other hand, I had also realized that you can achieve impossible goals if you believe in yourself. So while this starting training for the Ironman Austria before it became a solo happened, I had two business partners that I realized, I'm going to be very careful how I say it, just were not right for the business I was in. And I brought them in because I knew I needed help and I knew his pretense. And all of a sudden I realized if I take the confidence I built doing Ironman and that I was going to do for the Austrian and solo, because I ended up breaking off with them and keeping my other partners in different projects I was doing. But I only could do that through the confidence I brought up with COVID shutting everything down. Everybody has a chance to reflect. I was more confident in myself from the first Ironman, training for the next. I then transitioned to doing it solo, realizing if I believe in myself, plus have an amazing coach believing in me, not telling me how silly I was for trying to do solo, again, I have to say, but believing in myself, then I could break off from my business partners, do it on my own if I trained every day with the right plan and the right goal in mind. And so everything sort of meshed together. Being able to be with my boys who were at home, train on the trainer. I could run around the block like, I don't know, people. I couldn't swim. The sea nearby was open for a while, but I could do all my training as I needed to. But then everything meshed together. Believe in yourself, set impossible goals and then achieve them. But then also have the common focus to bend and meld yourself to those goals, really just believing in yourself. And then I go back to saying, not stopping yourself. And I think that the people, when you talk about the energy that happened in COVID, when people took that energy and let it affect themselves in a positive way, or took lemon and made lemonade as opposed to feeling like they got stuck with something bad, then I think that this was a tremendous opportunity. And 2020 was literally one of the best years of my life in all aspects, business-wise, social-wise, Ironman ways for sure, reeling how to be with my family and my kids, everything.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I believe in the same thing, like a lot of people think, why me? And I usually think, why not? And from there, you don't even make lemonade, you make a margarita.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, you just go from there, but
But but that's exactly what it is. And I think that the true goal was, so a little bit about the solo was that the idea was such a natural transition because I trained alone. I just put it all together. I chose June 21st because I love the solstice day. And then you told me it was your birthday. And that made it even more special for me. And especially that it was your 40th birthday. Like it just became very super special. And I think that, and one of the things I noticed this week was 2 days ago. I just told you like an hour or two ago, but the sense of, anytime you want to do an Ironman of that distance or anything of these goals, you have to have a sense of purpose. I went running for a 7-kilometer run 2 days ago, and I couldn't run in the morning, and it's summer here in Israel, and it's just boiling hot. And I got up, and after 3 or 4 kilometers, I was like, I knew I was going to finish, but like it was getting really hot, and I just kept reminding myself that I was dying on the 7-kilometer run, and I had to stop and I had to drink, but it was exactly the same temperature, exactly the same humidity as when I started the run on that solo a year before. So it's been exactly 1 year, which is why we're talking now. And I just kept on measuring that when I started the run, and there's a video that I made, a 3-minute video, and you can see me doing the transition from the bike. And I was full of energy and everything was great, although I can tell many stories how hard that run was. But the purpose and that focus and that mental of like, nothing's going to stop me. When you get yourself set to a goal, don't let anything stop you. It was the same temperature. I barely finished 7 kilometers, yet here I finished the whole Ironman and the whole thing and all solo. So it was just about putting yourself in that place.
And like I think you mentioned the right thing is the sense of purpose. Like I have
really, that's what you wrote, and I just remembered that to me. No, meaning you respond, yeah, but the sense of
yeah, I have a theory that it's the meaning theory. Like you gotta make your life has some sort of meaning in order to achieve anything. Like going through, just like you are in a steering wheel, on a steering master, like nonstop and not even thinking about the stuff. I think going within and having a sense of purpose makes a whole difference. Like you said, like 7 kilometers with the same thing versus
Then
42 kilometers is a whole different ball
it's a
game.
different ball game.
Well,
But
now, well, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say quickly on that note. I think that one has to be one has to be very clear on their self and their sense of purpose and their goal and reasons for doing Ironman. I think those are the demons you talked about, and probably your other athletes have gone through. If you just do it because you think it's cool or because you want a sticker or a logo, it's going to be really hard to finish. But so when you have that sense and why you're doing it, I think that that's what really closes and makes it possible.
Yeah, I think so too. I saw one of my athletes, it's there, Todd. What's up, Todd? Todd like trained with me for a while and different things too, and also he went through other stuff in life that we always been talking. So similar kind of
Nice,
thing, sense
amazing.
of purpose, and is the Minions theory. But now you did three Ironmans in pretty much 365 days, right?
It was an
Which
eight and
one
a half
was?
months from January 31st to October. It's the 14th. It was an 8.5 month period, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
it's crazy. No injuries. We're gonna talk about that next. But which one was the hardest one? The first, the second, or the third?
I wouldn't use the word hardest. I don't know. I think that each one brought its own challenges. I don't think any one of them were hard. I'm not trying to say that to compliment myself. I think the way you trained me and brought me to approach it, none of them were hard. Everyone had their challenges. None of them were easy. I
Yeah,
think that the solo Ironman, the run from step one, I like had a plan and who was going to meet me. I wanted that, but from step one, I was great through the bike. I met my target up there. Step one from the run was disastrous. The brick didn't transfer and everything, and maybe it was the temperature or who knows what. I have a lot of other ideas of what needed to come together. That was disastrous. But the second half of the third run, of the third Ironman run, the pain in the legs was horrible, worse than anything before. Ironically, the first one was my favorite, and I think that there was I was probably so concerned that I wouldn't finish the bike in time because of the hills. By the time I finished, everything else was literally downhill. The first 10 kilometers of the run is downhill, which is hard. And there's people surrounding me, and you just get this energy, which is why I think everybody says doing an Ironman surrounded by people is easy. I will say in this note, the third, one of my lessons of the hardest, the third Ironman and the second run. So I did the third one solo. I wanted that the sense of purpose, and I was going to try to leverage my solo to get into Kona, because if you're going to do another one, why not do Kona? I was totally naive about what it takes to get into Kona, but it was a special year, so I figured I would try, set impossible goals. Everything was shut down. The Ironman World Championships was shut down, but I had signed up on April 1st for the Ironman virtual, and so they set up their Ironman Kona virtual race as a full Ironman. It was the first time, and since then the only time they've ever done it. And so when I finished, I got my blue M Ironman, and I'm pretty proud of it. Only 119 people finished it, so I feel like it's better than the red Ironman. But to go on your question of what was the hardest part, that second half of the run was tremendously hard, and everything hurt. And I set my goals, but I ended up actually doing my personal best record on the run, beating the first Ironman run for one reason only. And this is where I can see the power of just one person helping you, besides having you in my mind. There was a good friend of mine who joined me for the last 2 kilometers of the race. And I didn't plan on it, but he knew I was doing it. I decided to do loops around a flat area around my house. That way I could set a bag of all my nutrition, because setting up the logistics when you're doing it by yourself, you need your water, your
it's hard.
juice,
Yeah,
so I set it up. But then I set it up. I did it was 1.2 kilometers, just under 1 mile. It's like 3/4 of a mile, 1.2 kilometers, a loop that I was doing, pretty much flat. And the guy lived in a building that was right in the middle of it. But this guy is like senior in the military, and he heads our community in one bit. And he's very calm and very humble. But he's the guy that when he speaks, you listen to, but in a nice way.
yeah.
He came by about an hour when I was around kilometer 30, and he was like, on his bike, he was like, how much longer do you have? I'm like, 1 hour, 10 minutes. And he showed up, ironically, and I had no expectation that he would, on kilometer 2. And he was like, he showed up to me and was like, how much longer do you have? And I said, literally, I just wanted him to disappear. I wanted to crawl into a hole. I wanted to die. Like in this case, on kilometer 32, I knew my 10-kilometer range. And if I could just keep up a certain pace, I could beat my time. But I had felt from kilometer 32 to kilometer 40, your mind starts slipping, your pace starts slowing.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, so I won't beat the time, I'll match it. So I'll be 2 minutes slower. No big deal. At least I'll finish. He shows up and he's like, how you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm great. And he's like, from now on, and I was walking in this every like couple hundred meters just because my legs couldn't go. But he shows up and he goes, this is connecting to why it was the hardest, because I just, the pain was so big in the legs. He goes to me, okay, and he's on a bike, but from here to the rest of the race, you don't stop running. And I looked at him while I'm like trotting along, and I was like, I won't say here all the curse words that went through my mind at him. But to be honest, I didn't stop running. And in that little bit, I actually managed to beat instead of doing it in the last 2 kilometers and what would have averaged probably 15 minutes or 16 minutes, I did, I think, and I can look whatever, around the 12 minutes. And I ended up beating the personal best by 1 minute, meaning like, because of that one person and the right person at the right time. And you can overcome even the hardest moments. So none of these things were really hard. All of them were hard all the way through. But again, it's that right person who gives the right amount of support at the right time that really makes everything key and go through.
So your fastest one was your third one?
The fastest one was the third one, and I think it was a mix of both weather. I think that it's a lot of things coming together. The experience going through. The way it worked actually was, and it was a little bit of a bummer, I had to swim in the sea. I was actually about 15 minutes slower on the swim that I wanted to before, but it was swimming in the sea and there was some waves and whatever. But yeah, the third one was definitely the fastest. The experience, I think, definitely kept in. The extra training walked in. And you were going to ask something about injury, which you had mentioned before. I don't know if you want to wait. I can wait a little bit. But I think that played a key role in how we trained for the third one.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was going to say, it's the second half of the Ironman is always like a breakthrough moment. It's either you're gonna break 100%. It or you're gonna go through. 100%. And I remember Ironman Cozumel that Brian Becker was on it. I was running, and like at one point of the race, I was like, I can't deal with the pain anymore, and I realized that walking or running, the pain was the same. So walking 6 minutes or 7 minutes per kilometer and running at 5 minutes per kilometer, the pain was the same, but running, I would finish faster and I can get my pizza and I can go to the massage stand. And then that's when I realized, I'm like, okay, just keep it running.
Yeah, but I think the night before my first one, you said, listen, by the time you get to the second half, you're going to finish. The question is, are you going to finish in 3 hours longer or run and finish in less? And I think, or whatever. And I think there was something along the line of, are you going to suck up the pain or not? And I think it's a balance of that. And
at one point you have to do that. It's not even a question, I guess.
Not even a question.
Now let's talk like how I know we talk about it, like the training was, like I was trying to make it in a way that all your dreams were possible and doable with the right amount of training without getting injured and being able to perform your personal best even on the third Ironman in 8.5 months. So what else did you do besides that? Besides, like the training, the food, obviously like it makes a huge difference going low carb when it comes to injuries and stuff. And I know I prescribed some things for recovery like yoga, but what else like you did, like when you were working, for example, like did you do anything or?
So I'll answer that in several different stages. First of all, I think there are so many different places around in the training that you almost get injured, where your body hurts, where you have to take it up, and you're very good at balancing between it. My ankle, I said at the beginning, I was born with a club foot, and every time I run, my ankles are still a little bit turned in. I had a surgery when I was just a few months old, and the doctor said if I didn't have the surgery, I would never walk, and with the surgery, I would still never run. Obviously, I've been proving them wrong the whole way through. But the point of that is, I need to be my muscles on my ankles, specifically my right, tighten up very quickly. So one of the biggest thing was a mental thing of being able to take 5 or 10 minutes every day and massage them and stretch them out. So that was for me the biggest preventer. But strengthening myself was also something very strong. But what I did is the low carb aspect, and this is something that you told me about, but I felt it's less of a pollutant. I think your body doesn't produce as much lactate. You do lower heart rate a little bit, but your body and muscles can recover much faster, and I think that's key. I think there's a lot of bit of energetic healing that you do. You learn to push yourself forward, but heal yourself while you run, while you push on the bike, and I think that's key. I think one of the things that you learn in an Ironman level of endurance is that you have to not only push yourself to the limit, but learn how to heal yourself and take those moments and do it together. At least that's for me is crucial. I think getting a lot of extra sleep, sleeping not just 5 or 6 hours, but even 7 or 8 hours is very important. So I think it's the mental and the physical altogether. I definitely think that the warning and the proper training, that's crucial. One of the other things that I've really found to be a great way to help in recovering in with training was I have a special device that uses red light therapy. It uses specific ways of healing the muscles and helping them recover a little bit faster, especially with after injuries and before any long workout. If you use a little bit of red light therapy, it strengthens the muscles and energize them. I found that to be a great way to recover, but also to prepare for the longer races. I think that the combination of learning how to breathe correctly and treat your body right, all of it came together. And really, I think that the proper, you step in with at the proper moments to give the proper warnings and the proper advice and build the proper schedule. And I think all that came together. Before the third Ironman, you clearly came up and said to me, when I said I might want to do it, you said, you have to watch out for mental and physical injury. And I felt pretty clearly I could get over any of the physical injury. I had just done 2 Ironmans. I was not confident, but knowing the stress. But the fact that you had mentioned about the mental injury side made me have some deep thoughts, and that's the last thing you want to do. You don't want to hurt yourself or push yourself too much to the edge or over the edge of endurance. And I really felt that was the great warning at the right time. I had the right balance of proper eating and using red light therapy to help recover when I needed to fix my muscles. But I also needed the aspect of the proper warnings at the right time.
It's interesting because you put it into words something I actually never explained to anybody. I just incorporate on the plannings and stuff, but I don't physically. I'm starting now how to explain to people. But one thing I learned in yoga is that you should push yourself, but you should not force it. Meaning, like, you push it, but you don't force it to a point. And a lot of people take the soul out of consideration when you talk about performance and health. And for me, and we talked about this before, it's like health, you can only have health with mind, body, and soul. It's the same thing with performance in any sport or life in general. And as of the red light therapy, you turned me on to it, and I actually use it now. Then I'll be honest, like going skateboard, restarting skateboarding at 40 years old is not the easiest thing to do, especially because the muscles are very different from Ironman. And I've been using red light therapy to a point that, like that allowed the nutrition and yoga and stuff. I'm actually able to skateboard every day if I wanted to, like body-wise. So like I back red light therapy 100% in the fact that health, you need mind, body, and soul to in order to perform. And I think red light therapy also works in some level on the energy level, on the soul level, but but I
Well,
think
yeah,
that
I'll just,
all those stuffs combined really help.
yeah, for
Uh,
sure. I think it's all combined, and I think that finding the elements that help you work. And I know that. So I have a device from a company called Maya Tapa, and I know that that if anybody wanted something that you know them too, and you could you work with them a little bit too. I think, but I think
yes,
that if you
yes,
use that the aspect of red light and the way it can heal you is something that's a little bit magical, and it's not it goes, the science behind it is very clear, and it influences the muscles and the cells, but there's a feeling like it comes in and helps, at least for me, complete the cycle of where we're of where we really can connect with ourselves and push ourselves to the maximum without going overboard. So I found that
yeah.
that's also
I
something very special.
I found that red light therapy uh, helps with mental clear, and I think like we talk here, the mental injury, it's something not everybody puts into play, and it's funny because I actually talk, and this happens in any aspects of life. Like I'm writing my book now, and I have a ghostwriter, and
Nice.
he was burnt out, and I said, I told him like, listen, you need to, like, mental injury, it's a lot harder than physical injury, so
For sure.
that there's a whole aspect. And I just started working with my apta, and for those who want, you can use Rocketology 15 to get a 15% discount in all your devices. I
Nice.
extremely
It's great.
recommend them.
That's a great.
Also, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's great. I think that first of all, I love red light therapy, and it's great that you're doing that. And I think that, but more importantly than that, I think finding the entire balance of how an athlete can keep their body healthy, especially when they're pushing themselves forward, incredibly important. It was certainly something that I had to do throughout these, and as you know, we're building up to the next one, and pushing a lot faster and harder. And I'm finding that using everything that we've talked about, both in the breathing and the eating, and also the mental focus, and certainly as I'm pulling injuries, not injuries, but keeping my muscles more relaxed with these red light things, that the red light therapy that you've been talking about. I think that it's really finding my way to reach my maximum and do a little bit more as I signed up for this 70.3 that's going to happen in a couple months. But I really want to do this one in a stronger fashion.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's funny because like I like the whole sense of punk, because punk for me it's almost like living at the limit, meaning like you're always pushing yourself. Like I have one of my favorite rock stars once, he sang about it. He said like it's not about winning, it's not about losing, it's about progressing. Always
Nice.
there. And then I think punk, it's like you're always at the limit, but not crossing, but always like pushing the envelope a little bit higher. And like once you learn that with Ironman, you can translate to almost everything in life.
Exactly, and that's something I think I was pointing out, that the first Ironman gave me the confidence to set myself up and leave partners who were holding me back and slowing me down business wise, and really set a path to a large success, which happened in June. From that, I guess a little bit before June until this last June, this last year, and using that success business wise to set it up and go a little bit further and really set larger goals. But also with my family, be able to, even just today, I went to pick up, I have a young boy who's my youngest boy who's 4.5. And I guess an inspiration, I never wear an Ironman shirt, but today I pulled one out of the closet. I felt like it was a good inspiration for this talk. I never do. Maybe I said it once, I'm in the closet Ironman. All my medals are in my closet and I don't have it. I guess, but I went and picked up my boy, my youngest boy, who's 4.5, and I'll tell a story about him in a second. And he's a ninja. He's amazing. It's actually, you asked what are the hardest part of Ironman. I'll tell you one of my best parts of Ironman, certainly the solo. But so I pick him up today, and I brought him a little scooter because we were late. I had to pick him up and rush home, and we're going to actually a ninja course, like ninja, like the show that ninja with it,
Yeah.
climbing and doing all this stuff. He's 4.5, and I'm wearing this. He goes, Iron Man, Iron Man, Iron Man. Like he's 4.5, like because he saw the shirt, he recognized it. And I'm like, Iron Kid, Iron Kid. He's like, I'm an Iron Kid. You're my Iron Dad. Like and he sees it and he knows it. And, but the part of the benefit of this exceptionalism was bringing in the family part and doing it all together. And I want to take a pause and go back. So June 21st, I'm on this Ironman. I had mentioned before, some of you had joined in only after that it got published in the news, and then my school heard about it, and so there was a big start and finish line, and about 100 kids from my kids' school showed up. And we made a race of it because COVID had shut everything down. So this is in the middle of COVID. Things were starting to open up, at least here for me in Israel. And these 100 kids came. We did waves. Obviously, it was outside and COVID allowed and whatever, and waves of running back and forth. And by the way, at this stage, I was so tired. I was happy for the chance to just stop and be like, all right, next wave, don't stop. And I started with them. And I planned to run a kilometer back and forth, like a 2-kilometer loop.
Yeah.
But it was so hot and I was so tired. I barely made it 500 meters. And at some point, the kids were only running 200 or 300 meters. So I turned around with them. But my little boy at this age, he was 3.5 years old. And this goes back to something about how everything sort of gels together. 3.5 years old. And he's a fireball of energy. He started the race. And I didn't count, and everything was a little bit more messy. Everybody was supposed to do once. He had done like 3 or 4 times, running back and forth, running back and forth. Now, I sort of mentioned that from step 1 of the run of the solo in June a year ago, my second Ironman, everything hurt. And literally, I was walking more than I wanted and more than I would care to admit to you. And I missed every time goal I wanted. It was just so hot, and I was breaking down. And like, my son came up to me. This is after he had run 3 or 4 times, and we had a babysitter or my wife running with him. But I remember like he had run up and we were about 200 meters from this turnaround point. And he grabbed my hand and I was like still trying to, everybody could watch me. And I was like, I still trying to pretend I was running. You know, I still like 15 kilometers or 15 kilometers that stage left to go. And he grabbed my hand and said, Dad, I want to walk with you. And my first thought was, no, I'm not And I said, wait a second. I've been walking so much in this and running slowly. And this is something that I'll remember, and this is something that he'll remember. And I stopped and I walked with him holding his hand, probably about 100 meters, which is a lot, right?
Yeah.
We're on the beach, we're walking, and I'm holding his hand, and I see him looking up at me, and I look down at him, and like, it's a moment that he remembers, he tells me about it, like with this Ironman thing, and I will remember for the rest of my life. And literally, not only is it one of my favorite parts of any of the Ironman or anything, it's one of the favorite things I've ever done in my life, mainly because I realized it was a moment we bonded. And it was also, you know, when you're running and pushing so hard, if all you care about is the time, you're going to miss all these wonderful things.
Yes.
And had I only cared about the time, I would have missed that moment. And that part of my mind was justifying that I'd walked enough and I'd missed some of my time goals and that I could stop. But you know what? I wish I would, and I probably wouldn't have had the wherewithal to know that that's the most important thing, because for me, the family is the most important. But I stopped and I walked together with him. And we shared a moment that for me will last forever. And he's a pretty smart kid, and it was only 3.5, but he still remembers now. Maybe he'll also remember. And I'll connect that with, so I'd missed all my time goals, and I think I finished late. And the last 10 kilometers, literally again at kilometer 32, maybe there's a magic point at kilometer 32, or maybe it's just for me with 10 kilometers left. And in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm doing the solo. I missed my time goals. I was going to try to do it, you know, under 13, but I was going to just slip over 13. I was going to try to do the run in under 4.5, but at least under 5. And I was like a few minutes over 5 on the end. It was just too hot. And all of a sudden I like released, and I looked around, I'm on the beach, and I was like, how privileged am I? It's a beautiful, I hope I could send you a picture. How beautiful is it? And how fortunate am I to do a solo, to train here? This is where my life is. This is how beautiful it is. And what only matters is that I do it for myself and not anybody else.
Yeah.
And in that moment, kilometer 32, for 32 kilometers, every step hurt. But in this case, the last 10 kilometers, everything drained out of my body. It was as if like I'd unleashed some sort of like plug. My legs didn't hurt anymore. I picked up my pace. I enjoyed every step. The last 10 kilometers were a pleasure, which is rare, right? And everything is just recognizing just how fortunate I was to have set this goal, and I was going to achieve it, and time had no meaning. It was just about doing it and enjoying it, and it was just the most beautiful last 10 kilometers ever, running on the beach, having my family there. So my goal, and I said this in the video I made in the transition on T2, but My only goal for the entire race was to finish the race with my three boys on my back, right? To have the
Yeah.
energy to carry them. And there's a video of that happen where I do that. I carry them across the finish line. And that was my goal. I wanted them to be part of it. And that's when I set out the solo goal, it was like, the only thing I really care is that I could finish with them. Because for me, it's about building the relationship with them. And that's what we ended up doing. And it was great.
That's awesome, and I think it's like it's all about that setting the example with the kids, and that's one thing I do with my kids as well. I think it's just about setting the example. I think that's the greatest gift we can give to any kid, really. And you know, at that moment of surrender, and I remember talking to you on the first solo. I said like, listen, I cannot even predict your time finish because usually I
You
predict.
predict pretty
And,
well up until that.
yeah, and then I told you it's like it's gonna be hard to predict because first you're gonna be solo. It's a whole different ball game, and there's like so many things going on. And I said like I think your goal is just to finish. You know, able to finish, and it's cool that you guys created all this thing, and you guys ended up raising some money. I know, like I
Correct.
have my foundation, my Rocketology is a nonprofit organization, and I know you guys donated money for it. So
Correct.
can you just tell, like, before we finish, because I don't want to take too much of your time. I know it's late there. I have like pretty much three questions. It's like the whole idea of raising money. What you guys wanted to do and why and all of that. Also, if there is something that you learn in those Ironmans besides this moment of, let's say, surrender and staying in the moment, which is beautiful, and I think it's incredible that your kid led you to this moment,
Right.
and I usually say like kids are so smart on the spiritual side that they have this capability of just almost stopping the moment and rescuing you to that moment of surrender in a way. My son did this to me. My daughter does this to me like all the time, and so it was pretty incredible that he kind of took you to like, hey, dad,
100%. A
just
new
chill,
level.
just stay in the moment and just let it all go. And it's that unplugged moment that you're like, okay, I don't have any pain. I can keep running. So tell me a little bit about raising the money and if there's something else that you learned through this journey in three Ironmans. I know in my 18 Ironmans, in each one of them, I learned something
Something
different
else. Yeah.
and something deep, like moments like that you like out of nowhere it was just your kid grabbing your hand and your whole world pretty much stopped in a way and then you surrender. So I'll pass the
So,
word for you
so,
because I can
so,
talk all day.
I can talk with you forever. I almost am going to do another Ironman just so we have our call before,
Just have it on the
before.
line.
We need to call more often. I know you said I can call you whenever I want, but I feel that we text, we what, you give me, but it's almost worthwhile doing Ironman to have the pre and post call. Um, um, so raising the money, I think that there's a perspective, and I actually learned this more from my wife. She grew up in this a little bit more, and I think giving back to people and helping people and figuring out what you want to do, which a lot of times is giving money, and I think money can be from $10, from a little amount if that's what you have. I think that re-invites yourself. My son actually, who's going to turn 10 in August, he started a business when he was still 8. In the middle of COVID, he went out, started selling things. We have a 3D printer. I said I printed a metal. He started selling and making money, and he's made some money, but part of what he's done is given to charity. I think giving to charity or giving the foundations for the right cause is very important. For me, it was um, somebody had approached me on this who has a bigger NGO to give to a lot of different foundations and said, you can make this moment, you can raise money, you can get other people to come together and have them really contribute. And this was a solo for me, and I definitely am happy to help other people get and raise money, but that wasn't my main goal. But I think that what I wanted to turn this into was a place where, at least for some amount, for some bit, that the goal would be $2,260 for the 226 kilometers that was being raised and split between several organizations. But some of them definitely for the Go Luke Foundation, which is in my mind like fantastic and amazing and does great and tremendous things. And um, I think that that actually gave a sense of purpose in the run. And one of the things I learned was, this is connecting between the two, and I'll go back to the money in a second, and then to what I learned was when for me, sports became a form of excellence, which is something that's much more known in America and much more practiced with more team sports and solo sports, and sports is much more common. But I think that finding people who don't have access to the sports and giving them that little bit of push, or finding a way to help people who don't have the funds to buy a pair of shoes, to buy a ball, a football, a basketball, whatever, that little bit where you can do little amounts of money and help, or even just take your time and coach somebody, giving in that way. I think that became a way to balance. And I really wanted to use what was a solo Ironman, this news report that came out 3 weeks before, and this wave of support I got, how to turn that into something that could help others achieve their excellence. And in some sense, we often do things that are selfish. And I felt like by helping others, whether it was money or building organizations or foundations, it would also help me back. And that was something that was a recurring or a force multiplier in how some money could help more people, but then in some way then help me come back and be stronger. So I think that a lot of races raise money for charities, and that's great. But I think that it also, when you look where that charity goes and helping others, how that helps you become a better person as well. Not because you gave the money, but because afterwards, when you helped others, if you can go and be like, if I can help others, they can help me, then I can help others and they can help me. And then you can really turn that into something that's a recurring cycle. In that sense, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think that the I call the game of mirrors is like you empowering yourself at the same time you empowering others. And that's
Beautiful.
one thing that I love, like when I was a coach, when I
When
was
you
coaching
are.
more often, and now I'm back in the game.
Hey, I
But
signed up for the
when I was
lifetime
coaching,
coaching. I have the lifetime coaching membership, so I'm only paying in the smaller segments, but don't plan on stopping that anytime soon.
yeah, it was funny because like on the renewal there, you said to me like, "Can I renew for a lifetime?" I was like, "I never been asked that before." But anyways, uh, now it's like what I like. It's like one person in the house change. Let's say they start like working on themselves, wanted to do an Ironman. Like the entire household change, and I think that like sports, uh, it it is a way and it is a form of moving meditation that helps you get in touch with yourself and helps you empower yourself. And the minute that you empower yourself, you empower others because you
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
you can't pour from an empty cup. Like if your cup is empty, like you can never overflow to your kids or things like that. So it's very important to have.
So we talked at the beginning about even how I found you because I'm doing it on low carbs, and I think that that's the right way to do it. It was my lifestyle before, but it really became a form of excellence. But I think that some of the things that I learned from this are that watching the kids and how the life changed. I stopped eating sugars, and now I'm eating 100% chocolate, and even that's sort of sweet for me. And I never forced it upon my kids, but now I hear my kids more and more often saying, "Oh, dad doesn't eat sugar. Oh, this sugar cereal is a little sugary, so maybe I don't want some." Or these, eating an ice cream that we have in a treat because it's summer and hot. Too much sugar and it's too sweet. I'm done, and throw half of it away. I'm fine throwing ice cream away. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather not waste, obviously, but if you are going to waste something, I'd rather be. So I see them sort of integrating into it. Also, my kids are doing like ninja and different soccer and all these things. And I can't say that these aren't kids who are doing it anyways, but I think, or I'd like to hope, and so they say a little bit, they see me, especially because I'm doing a lot of my bike training, certainly during COVID and for the both solos, was in my backyard and on a trainer. So they were watching me. I put on Zwift and they'd see the guys and the other avatars going, and they go faster, go faster, go faster. So I think seeing them and how it encourages them re-encouraged me, and I think you can see that lifestyle going to them. But then you had asked, what did I learn from this? And I think that's for me, and I think this is how I connected to you because I saw it in your profile when I wrote to you. But it was your first sort of response to me. My number one goal was to find somebody. One was no carbs, no sugars, but somebody who understood that for me, family and raising my boys took number one priority. And you obviously understand that, and not only understand that, built that in, but I think it was um, uh, knowing that we could become a better role model as a person, as a father for our family and for others, but mainly for our father, for our children, and in every which way. And I think you embody that yourself for sure. And that's one of the things I most admire. I think you're probably the most dedicated father that exists on the planet. And I think that's guides me in a lot of my ways with my boys, for sure. I'm not saying Carol's not an amazing mother. I'm sure she is, but certainly in our interactions, I can see that with you. And I think that one of the things I want to, and I say this to my boys, is that, and I created a short website after the race called inspiration226.org. And there's no marketing there. It's a dead website. It's up. But I put 2 slogans up there that were constant in my mind during the solo race, which was make impossible possible. I think I realized from the first Ironman and building up to this solo with you, and you telling me when I called you up saying, wow, I never could have done the solo, you're crazy for doing it. Like, I realized it came together. Not crazy for doing it, but you're crazy that you did it. And make impossible possible, meaning think big and don't compromise. And really, if you think it's impossible, just find a way to make it possible. And we talked about it a bit before, but that's something I take back and I think about it all the time. And the second thing is, and I tell people when people asked about it, is we and I have it on that website, which is we just stop stopping yourself. We oftentimes, the first thing that comes up is no. You ask somebody, should you do it? No. Can I do it? No. Wow, that's going to be too hard. And then we set these mental blocks within ourselves that we now have to overcome. And I think a lot of people become unhappy or depressed because of these mental blocks. That's just my opinion. Or overweight, and then you don't achieve things. And that's stopping us. And I think that when we stop stopping ourselves, maybe we don't achieve. It's okay not to achieve, but I feel like we should stop stopping myself. And I think your comment on before the third Ironman about watching out for mental injury and physical injury, I think being very key and tuned to ourself. And that's what I think I take with me. Knowing when you're pushing too much, knowing when it's a little, you need to slow down, not trying to, after the third Ironman, actually, I was going to try to run faster and pick up my pace. I started changing my run and I injured myself. I pulled a tendon, we got over it, no big deal. I used the red light therapy device to really help myself heal faster. But when I was focusing on the time, I didn't run right. When I focused on the breathing and the stride and being myself and being the best I can and breathing and feeling the air going to my fingertips and my toes, I run faster than anything else. And so I think that keeping the mental focus and the physical focus gel together. And I think those are the things that I learned as we go together. And I think that I'm privileged to have you as a coach, and I'm glad you did your journey and started your journey. And I'm glad that you kept on coaching during the way, because I think a lot of the things you have said along the way have not only influenced the way I train, and that's elementary as far as a coach goes, but also how I view my life, how I treat my family, how I can be calm with myself, how I can attempt every day to be a better person and be a better father, and integrate my family with triathlon, keeping my family at the forefront. And it's something that every day is something that I try to improve, and it's amazing. And so triathlon has definitely become amazing, but the way you have coached it and the way you bring it into my life and others is just, it's a great symbiosis, and it works together very well.
Thank you. I have no words to reply for that. The only thing I always claim it as a coach, as an athlete, I think is have your peace with your own spirit, like, and be present. Like when you're thinking about the results, you're anxious. And with any dream in the world, I think you gotta shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you're gonna land on the stars. So it's kind of like, like you gotta go big. When I came from a background, like I was smoking and overweight, and I said, like, I remember buying my first triathlon bike, and then the guy was looking to me like, you smell like cigarettes. You're like 50 pounds overweight. You're 260 pounds. Like, you know what Ironman is? I'm like, just give me the bike. I gotta do it. And I think that, I mean, like I said, is that punk attitude, being on the limit, but not like overdoing it, and being in touch with yourself is like when you are thinking too much of the end result or what is going to happen next, you lose that momentum. You know, like you need to be in.
On that note, it's something, and I'm sorry to cut in. It was every time in any of the races I've done when training and running, in the running, when I kept on thinking how I'm going to pick up pace towards the end, or I'm not going to pick up pace toward the end, how am I going to finish? Am I going to, every single time I felt my body starting to hurt, my knees starting to hurt. I couldn't run as much. And so I learned to just not think about it and know that as long as I just focus every step along the way, and just know that one step, one step, one step, and I'll finish, but not think about the end, I'll be fine. Every time I thought about the end, my body started hurting it, and not even in longer runs. And so I've learned through that just to really be calm with yourself and really focus and take the moment.
All right. Well, is there anything you would like to add to this conversation? I think like talking was amazing. We were able to hit a lot of the points, and I think a special one. I think it's the soul aspect in a sense, the energetic aspect, which is probably the key for my coaching methodology, which is so hard to write about it and explain it to. It's more like a talking one-on-one like we did, even though you're in Israel, but we're always talking and having these conversations, and we were able to go through that. Is there anything you would like to add so we can finalize? I know you need to go to bed, and because in Israel it's what time now?
It's
11
it's
o'clock?
11:15 at night. It's late.
11:15
Gotta
now.
get my
So,
sleep.
yeah.
You gave me such a hard training session this week that I gotta make sure I keep my rest going on.
Well, you have
No,
a seven. Well, now that you said,
yeah, I
like,
did
you
the
have a
running. We
70.3
remember we
goal.
talked about switching up the week a little bit. So yeah, so we switched it up a
Yeah,
little bit as opposed to the 7 tomorrow.
you
So
had
the swim
six
tomorrow.
tempo.
So um, you know, I think that when I think about I did the two last ones solo, but I still say we. And when I say we, I mean you and I. It was something that we did together, and I did the actual physical activity, but you brought me there. You always, again, I'm gonna not to ruin, but people have worked with you have said, but like once you get to the starting line, you're most likely going to finish. The mental side is getting to the starting line, and the way you want to get there. And so I say the we, and I'm not joking about the lifetime membership. I might only pay you 1 or 2 year increments, but I'm definitely on board because like I can't right now imagine that. I want to keep the fitness and I want to keep the energy, but and we'll find ways to stay in touch. And I know even if you're not my coach, we'll still be friends, and we'll still be there. But like I think that if this is what we could do over this, I guess it's almost exactly 2 years now. And I hope you feel the same way. But if this is what you've managed to help me do, not only achieve dreams, but reset them in ways that I wouldn't have thought about before, and also expand those dreams to areas where I really wouldn't have been able to expect this level of excellence. Family, business, social, but also in just the running wise and staying fit wise. So I think that if this is what we've done the last couple of years, I can't wait to see what the next couple of years will bring. And I really think that your intuitive way of coaching, I see the schedule that sort of melds into whatever's really happening in my life at the time, whether I have more energy or less energy. And you have a really great intuition, and the more you embrace that, the more I think that you can help many more people and help people guide to the dreams. You have a knack, it's intuition, but it's something you've developed really well, and I thank you for that. And really, I'm anybody who has any contemplation if they should do a triathlon at all and is approached to you, let's send them to me, and I will help them convince them that they should only do it with you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I must say your lifetime membership it's saved. I haven't put a price on it, but
We'll do it. We'll do it in increments. We'll do it for sure.
no, I think it's great. Like I said, I like coaching athletes like you that get stuff done, and comes from a background with a crazy idea, and like I said, I'm not the one to judge anyone if they're capable or not. I think it's if it's you, if you, when you came to me and you said like, I think I can do it, I was like, okay, so now my job is to find ways that we can make that happen.
Exactly,
So,
exactly. Which is, by the way, and maybe you don't know it. I mean, you might not. It's so unique. It's. I think most coaches have a set fit, and they make people fit to them. And I think the fact that you adapt to the athlete is what makes it. It certainly adapted with me, and I think that that's beautiful. I think that that's also the most important, and helps somebody overcome when you reach an Ironman that you want to continue. It helps people when you do less or more, and I think that's I think you help show that anybody who really wants to could train themselves into to these beautiful goals of an Ironman and beyond.
yeah, like I said, I think as a coach, I have very good coaches as I went through, including my brother. Like I said, he's just joining online.
Nice.
That I not only learned all these layer songs, but I learned how to never give up. And he was my first sponsor, and then my
He
wife
did
came
good.
into.
Let me thank him. I appreciate that because I definitely have a benefit of 18 Ironmans down the road. Without you, I don't know what I would have done. So
Yeah, and like I said, then afterwards, my wife came into play, which she was like another key role of me becoming uh, this Ironman and the coach. Uh, um, and I think, like I said, we did it. You know, like not only me and you, but I didn't get the way that I am now without any help. And like I said, I think every coach jobs is to make sure we are listening to the person's dream, and that it's important because it's such a powerful such a powerful tool and such a powerful energy, and it's not up to me to crush it. It's to me to actually put more energy so that can build.
yeah.
And like you said, it's like once you empower yourself, you empower others, and this way, I think honestly, if we all start thinking this way, I think the world can be transformed. But that's something that kind of gotta come with it. So I will appreciate your time to talk to me about all of this, and I know it's late in there. Your kids are
I
you
look forward
probably
to
missed a
reading.
bad time, but you know I think it
I
was for
look
a good
forward to
reason.
reading your book, and I'm happy to read and edit all you like. You know, I have be my pleasure any way possible. I look forward to reading it.
No, thank you. It's a book of memories on how I got into all this concept of mind, body, and soul for performance
Yeah.
and health. So there is a lot of craziness that go on in my story, but I think that you know everybody's life it's at one point is a storm. So mine is no different.
Yeah, you know, 18 Ironmans is I think is a legacy. I think
No,
that
thank you.
it's impressive and all stand for not just the number, but the focus and achievement and without going into too much, just the way you stopped and how you stopped and why you stopped and what you've done since you stopped, in my mind, is something that you knew when it was time to stop and what was more important in life. And I think that that's also worthy of mention and credibility. But in any case, yes, I think that you help people achieve dreams. You help me achieve mine, and more important, like I said, I'm still setting out dreams for the next certain levels based on the stuff we've done together. So it's amazing.
Cool. I can't wait for your next 70.3. And if you, all of you, if you're having a chance, check it out. Inspiration226.org.
.org. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And you
And
can check it out mine too at rocketology.com. And we go from there.
and
I
if
see
anybody
you
wants
next time.
to, yeah, for sure. If anybody
Maybe
wants
there's another
to,
Ironman that we can do another live.
they say March or they say next
I'm
week.
just
So wait,
planting the
what day is
seed.
it? Yeah, let's see. One step at a time. Very cool.
All right. Thank you very
Great.
much.
We'll talk to you soon.
I
Appreciate
appreciate
the
it. Thank you.
opportunity.
All right.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.